It's great to have all of you here tonight. My name is Jeff Birdsong. I'll be the moderator for this event. And this event, of course, is the 2011 Mayoral Forum. It's sponsored by the Ottawa County Conservatives. And we're here on the campus of Northeastern Oklahoma A&M College, which is the host site for the forum. One of the two gentlemen seated before you will be the next mayor of Miami. And I'd like for them, I think probably everyone here may know both these individuals, but just in case, just raise your hand, I guess, when I call out your name. Mr. Scott Trussler.
Hello. Good evening.
And Mr. Kent Ketcher.
Hello.
And I would like to commend both of these individuals running for mayor. As a voter, I know that I need choices in order to be able to cast a ballot. And so I appreciate both of you for providing that choice for me and everybody else here in Miami as you've decided to run for mayor. I'd like to ask the audience here tonight to please be a receptive but passive audience. In order to get through these questions efficiently, I would like all of you to please refrain from applauding or making comments during the questioning. This is the format. We have 8 questions. These 8 questions were published in the Sunday Miami News Record. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to answer each question. The order of the questions will be as they were published in the newspaper. And the order for answering the questions will rotate after each question. So in other words, the candidate who answers on the first question will answer second for the next question, and it will continue to rotate that way as we get through the 8 questions. The rotation was decided in my office earlier today with 2 eyewitnesses, and I did not share that rotation with the candidates. They'll find that out here soon enough. I think the way of looking at this is a good way not only for us as the audience to know how the candidates, their viewpoints on these questions, but also gives us an opportunity to know how you prepared. Have these questions for about a week, and so you have the opportunity to get ready for that 5-minute or less answer. And so, if in case you're roughly in that area and you've not yet answered your question, I'll give you a warning that you have 30 seconds left to answer your question. And I will just give you the warning that will say 30 seconds. And that will be the time for you to wrap up your answer. Are there any questions then? All right. We'll start with question number 1. What can the mayor do to promote more economic development for Miami, and how can the mayor coordinate the activities of the various economic development organizations currently in place? And Mr. Ketcher will go first.
Thank you. Well, I believe you must partner with existing resources in our community, including educational, governmental, new and existing industries. Hopefully, the economy will improve to attract investments that will promote prosperity. Our future economic relationship has to partner with one another to provide these opportunities each need. I believe the economy affects all aspects of our community. The mayor must provide the necessary leadership in dealing with Miami Area Economic Development Services, known as MAIDS, our downtown economic developer, our lobbyists, the local Chamber of Commerce, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Miami Main Street, the Indian Tribes, and the Intertribal Council. All have to promote revenue, image, and growth utilizing the historical Coleman Theater and Route 66. A proper agenda or game plan, if you prefer, must be developed, and each participant be accountable to each other for their endeavors and their activities. Hold quarterly meetings to find out what the aforementioned organizations are working on and see if the city can provide resources to assist in resolving a problem or the problems. The city staff, of course, would be at the forefront in coordinating the various organizations' activities, assisting the mayor and city council. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ketcher. Mr. Trussler.
I think it's appropriate that this is the first question, because this is the issue that our residents have clearly said is their #1 concern in numerous surveys that we've done at the city and, of course, in the community. Our success in this area leads to success in solving most of the other challenges that we face as a community. Currently, we have a multifaceted approach to economic development that involves several distinct entities. Each of these entities has a specialized focus, and each group has access to different types of local, state, and federal government resources that the others do not. First and foremost, we must foster an environment that allows our existing retail, manufacturing, and tourism-related businesses to grow and to prosper. Then we must focus on ways to attract new businesses and, of course, the jobs that come with them. Currently, our Chamber of Commerce works to improve the business environment for our existing businesses, and the city currently has representation on this board. We will continue that. We also have the MIDA, or the Miami Industrial Development Authority, which owns and manages the 2 industrial parks that benefit our community. We currently have a councilman who serves on the MIDA board. The MIPFA, or the Miami Industrial and Public Facilities Authority, which manages city-owned properties. Currently, a councilman chairs that board. We just helped bring in about $4.5 million of expansion by the Thermo Fisher Corporation with the cooperation of Maids. In addition, we have numerous other properties, one of which currently serves as a business incubator. The city also has a resource known as the Miami Development Authority. It's currently chaired by Mayor Brassfield. It's been very instrumental in improving our housing stock. The city's efforts have resulted in 10 new homes in the area, and we have several more that are in the beginning and planning stages to be completed. We have a professional manager for the CVB, or the Convention and Visitors Bureau. It promotes tourism, and of course, it's also in our downtown area. One of the figures I recently read about was the fact that our hotel and motel revenues are up by 14%. In the region, that figure is down by 50%. So Miami in the current economic situation is improving, even though the rest of the region is not. Amanda does a good job as our CVB director, and I'm very thankful for what she does. Councilman Schultz just replaced me on the Grand Gateway Economic Development Board. It's an organization which assists communities with grant applications for municipal projects. Another area which the city will continue on is the ad hoc basis that we work with the tribes with. We work on the tribes on various projects with their economic development efforts, and of course they also help us when we have needs on our projects as well. They've been very generous with their help. We will of course continue that. The city currently or recently hired Ricky Hayes with Retail Attractions, a retail sales tax promotion company with their specialty. We've recruited them to recruit additional retail businesses to better serve our citizens and of course promote the sales tax growth. We believe we've got some very exciting things that are about to be made public. Of course, we're just waiting for some of those things to come to fruition. MAIDS, or the Miami Area Economic Development Services, focuses on recruitment of manufacturing businesses, bring more jobs to our community. Of course, the mayor and city manager serve on the MAIDS board. We're going to continue that relationship as well. And MDRA, the Miami Downtown Redevelopment Authority, has been instrumental in helping revitalize our downtown, specifically the Pullman. We'll be talking a little bit more about this question a little bit later on in the forum. And last, probably the most important thing that's going to continue to take place is the communication that we developed over the past 3 years. It's the communication between the city, the state agencies, as well as federal agencies, the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. All these communication paths are paramount to the success of Miami and the dollars that we can attract for those efforts to grow Miami. The most important thing that a mayor can do is foster an environment of cooperation and provide a pro-growth environment for the city's legislative and regulatory process. As your mayor, I will work with each of these groups to coordinate their efforts so that the benefits for our community are more than just the sum of what each of them can do individually. Thank you.
Question number 2. As mayor, how much time on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis are you prepared to devote to the city of Miami? And Mr. Trussler will go first.
The simple answer to that question is as much as it takes. It's not a 9-to-5 job by any stretch of the imagination. When I first became a council member, then Mayor Post told me that I would spend approximately 5 hours a week, most weeks, but more like 10 during council meeting weeks and at budget time to do the job justice. That being said, I like to be a little bit of an overachiever, and I've spent more than that on average. The time spent as a council member or mayor changes based on the time of year and, of course, the issues that are confronting the city, or in some cases when Mother Nature pays us an unexpected visit. I've always met that challenge and will continue to do so as Miami's mayor. For example, during the ice storm of 2007, I spent many hours during the day receiving updates at the city and passing on that information along to organizations and residents so they could better cope with the emergency. I use my industry contacts to help get electrical supplies to local contractors so that residents and individuals could get back their electric back in working order. At night, I was part of a group of residents who volunteered to operate the city switchboard to take calls so that city employees could go home to their families and rest and be back the next day to continue the hard work. Similarly, during the flood of 2007, I helped with many of those same activities, including responding to the occasional call for help to help a resident move some of the belongings out of their home as the flood waters got close. This type of service is not unique, and the mayor and other council members made the same time and effort sacrifices. Mayor Brassfield was never able to do it all, and neither will I be able to. Just as Mayor Brassfield often delegates some tasks to council members, I will as well. Once again, this is a cooperative effort where more heads, and more importantly hands, are often better than one. I believe having a full-time mayor is not necessary or even desirable with a council-manager form of government. If we allow the process to work as it is intended, the city manager handles the day-to-day operation and the council focuses on policy. I believe that having a full-time mayor could even detract from what a council-manager form of government does so well for our community. It would be confusing to our employees, our citizens, and those looking at our community from the outside with an eye toward investing here. The council-manager structure also keeps information from being too concentrated in one person, especially since the next mayor may not be willing or able to devote full time to the position. I understand that the time requirements of the mayoral position are greater than those of serving as a councilman, and I'm up to that challenge. This issue isn't really about how much time a candidate is willing to spend on a job, but how effectively the candidate can perform the job. If you need to dig a ditch, you have two choices. You can choose to dig the ditch by hand, or you can use the proper equipment and get it done in a fraction of the time with a whole lot less effort and a lot better result. We all know people who are very proud of the amount of time that they spend on a job, even though they didn't do that job very well. I've watched Mayor Brassfield over the last 7 years. I understand what the time commitment of the position is. Like me, he is also a man with a business and a family, yet he's done a wonderful job, even with the time limitations he's faced. I pledge to you that I will spend the amount of time it takes to do the job well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ketcher?
As a former city councilman and public utility chairman, I often spent 15 to 20 hours per week performing the necessary duties required. As you know, I am retired. I've been married for 51 years to the same woman. God bless her. I have 2 grown married children and 1 granddaughter. I am available to serve with the necessary time the position requires. In the past, I have always planned my personal life around my city responsibilities and duties.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ketcher. Okay, question number 3. What are the strengths and weaknesses of a city manager form of government, and is there a better system of government for the city? And Mr. Ketcher will go first.
As a strength, you have one individual responsible for a wide variety of city and utility services from administration to zoning. He is the chief executive officer and head of the administrative and utility services of city government and all the departments therein except as set forth in the city charter. He is appointed by the city council members and works for them. I believe in the city charter and voted for the city council city management form of government in November of 2000. It took effect on January the 1st, 2001. I will work for and believe in honest face-to-face communication to the elected city council members and to the general public must improve. I do not appreciate or approve of the various personnel situations that have been occurring within our city organization. There has to be openness, honest communication between elected and appointed officials, as well as to you, the public. The city manager must possess the necessary education plus the work experience.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ketcher. Mr. Kressler.
Before I answer the question, I think it's important to address the phrasing of the question that might be confusing to some people. To be precise, what we actually have is a council city manager form of government. If you look at an organizational chart, at the top of the chart, of course, is the citizens and the voters. In the middle of the chart are the elected officials that you elect, and of course, at the bottom of the chart is the city manager, which is hired by the city council. When the voters overwhelmingly voted to join the many other forward-thinking communities across Oklahoma and the nation in adopting a council city manager form of government, our citizens recognize that the primary task of local government is to provide basic services of a technical nature and should therefore not be political. The main problem with the former government the commissioner form of government is that you sometimes end up with individuals that were better at getting elected than they were at administering departments. Commissioners tended to compete with one another to protect their own areas rather than work together to prioritize our community's needs. With our current form of government, council members only serve part-time, linking the public to its government and defining broad policies that the city manager and administration implement. A full-time mayor with broad operational powers would be a step backwards in time. So I believe our current form of government is the best option for our community. The council manager form of government gives us professional management and an increasingly complex regulatory environment. It also eliminates the inappropriate political influence of council members. The council led by the mayor is responsible for setting goals, approving budgets, and overall policies. It is the job of the city manager to oversee the implementation and manage the employees. To have it otherwise would create chaos because city employees would then have two bosses to please. One, a council member that has little, if any, understanding of labor law, grant obligations, or other specialized knowledge of city management. And second, the city manager who has specialized training in these areas. No employee can serve two masters. Importantly, the council manager form of government is most desirable for economic development. Outside developers and entities often ask our governmental structure before proceeding with fact-finding. The professional management of a community, coupled with the continuity it provides, gives them the peace of mind necessary to enter into long-term investment and agreements. Investments and agreements which would then not be affected by the political winds of change. While you may not personally like every decision the city manager makes, that is certainly not a reason to change the form of government. If it does become necessary to change city managers, then so be it. But we shouldn't do it because he sometimes has to make difficult personnel decisions, and by law is sometimes unable to explain the reasons behind these terrible, difficult decisions to the public. Are there some weaknesses to the council manager form of government? Possibly. Can some minor changes to our charter be made that would improve what we have? Possibly. Is there a better form of government for Miami? I don't think so. It's the job of the council to oversee the performance of the city manager. Never once in my time on the council has any city manager failed to follow a directive voted on by the entire council. I'm a strong supporter of and a proponent for the council manager form of government.
All right, thank you. Question number 4. As mayor, what would you do to promote more business activity and tourism in downtown Miami? And Mr. Trussler will go first.
The two major things that the city has been involved with downtown are the publicly owned Coleman Complex improvements and the street and sidewalk repairs done recently. Both have already had a fairly large payoff for the city of Miami. Traffic is brisk again in the area downtown after many years of decline. Parking has been increased in front of the buildings, and even with these improvements, it's very hard many times to find a parking spot due to the number of visitors and shoppers downtown. The utility department has been working on upgrades to services in the alleyways as part of the utility department's maintenance and improvement program. This has resulted in more reliable service and, of course, more efficiency. The private investment in downtown has simply been astounding. It's incredible. Many buildings have been renovated and several new tenants have moved into these buildings. We currently have an eclectic mix of restaurants, retail, office, and professional services in the downtown area. Our city's Main Street program recently received recognition on our community's behalf for reaching $15 million in reinvestment over the past 15 years. The Main Street program has played a role in these redevelopment efforts in several ways. They've provided design assistance as well as grants to help with some of the fronts of building renovation, including awnings. They've helped in a grant with the HVAC system for the Coleman Theater. They also helped with business plan development, and they were instrumental in the ODOT T21 grant program. Originally, there was a downtown building that stood vacant for many years and was purchased. It's been renovated to a certain extent, and a restaurant is now located on the first floor. Currently underway is renovation of the rest of the building to provide more office space downtown as well as space for professional services. Currently, the inventory downtown, I don't know of any empty buildings that are not being utilized. Thanks to the efforts of the Chamber of Commerce, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Miami Main Street, and other local organizations, several events now take place downtown on a regular basis. The Native Oklahoma Weekend has been an example. Of course, we've had several sporting events downtown. The car club programs that the CBB has introduced into the community, as well as the usual parades that we have many times during the year. I think in the future, many of the things that we need to improve upon or look towards or maybe at least start the planning stages for are parking improvements. The parking areas behind the downtown district need some attention. We need to encourage the filling in of the few vacant lots that we have in the downtown area. We have some places where buildings used to stand but currently are empty. I think that can be encouraged. We need to encourage as much retail as possible. Retail growth is, of course, key to our future. The increased revenues, as well as the goods and services available to purchase locally rather than having to go outside of town. We need to continue our Convention and Visitor Bureau efforts to promote Miami, which brings groups like the mini clubs that I just mentioned to Route 66, the Route 66 tourism, and of course the busloads of tourists to visit the Coleman and enjoy the entertainment offered there. One of the statistics I was reading about mentioned that a busload of visitors has a $3,000 to $10,000 immediate impact on our local economy. The track record we've established with our public and private partnerships is something I'm committed to and continuing, and more importantly, expanding. With the gold mine of I-44 and Route 66 passing right through our communities, we have to continue to tap into that market and expand on the tourism. Those dollars are important to our community.
Mr. Ketcher.
Yes, well, I would call a meeting of the Chamber of Commerce and Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. I would have input from the Coleman Theater and any organization that has events in the city, including NEO at A&M College and the various Indian tribes. Each and every stakeholder needs to be present to assess the strengths and weaknesses in an event and develop a plan for successful outcome. Find out from the aforementioned which events have been good successes and develop a similar event. You work off your successes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ketcher. Let's go to question number 5. As mayor, how much emphasis would you place on using local businesses for the needs of the city before contracting out to non-Miami vendors? Mr. Ketcher will go first.
Thank you. The emphasis for using local businesses and shopping local should always be first in the minds of the city organization and second to non-Miami vendors. The bidding procedure must follow, of course, state laws which govern our city. But of course, if no local vendor can provide the needs of the city, then you have no choice but to go outside Miami for the city's needs. And I would like to talk to the city attorney and have him research our city charter and state law to ascertain if the city could establish a percent margin to favor our city vendors in these bidding processes.
Thank you. Mr. Pressler.
It's obvious that we want to use local vendors whenever and wherever possible. This is something that the entire council and administration staff are in complete agreement upon. Local businesses, of course, pay property taxes, city sales tax, they use city utilities, they provide jobs, and they give generously back to our community. We, of course, have to follow the law in the bidding out of contracts. There are certain laws and guidelines that apply to bidding for contracts with the city, including those that require us to accept the lowest qualifying bidder, as you would want us to do. We are committed to using your tax dollars wisely and prudently, and sometimes that requires us to choose outside bidders. The City Council has unanimously requested on at least 2 occasions since I've served as councilman that the city attorney research and explore how much latitude, with respect to the law, the city has in its desire to use local vendors. That research has yielded some positive results. We will continue these efforts in the future. Our city manager has implemented policies within administration and staff to use local vendors wherever possible on day-to-day items not subject to the bidding process. When we do not have a local source for goods or services, we talk to our local businesses about adding those services to their current inventory or to their current offerings. Changes in our current finance procedures make it easier and faster for our local vendors to get paid, and thus they're more willing to work with us to save taxpayer dollars and provide what we need to do the city's work on a daily basis. Healthcare is an excellent example of how we're making better use of a local vendor. Recently, we negotiated a new schedule of rates for our employees' healthcare plan, as well as initiated a wellness plan. These changes have resulted in the saving of over $100,000 for taxpayers this year alone. Our local hospital, Integris Healthcare, is now the provider of our annual employee health fair. Employees can take advantage of low-cost testing, education, and access to medical providers. Previously, this had been done by hospitals outside of our community. This is important because our local hospital employs approximately 400 of our family, friends, and neighbors. If I didn't feel it was important to use local vendors whenever possible, then I would not be running for mayor. I shop locally and encourage others to do so as well. In fact, my recent vehicle purchase was with local automobile dealers. Again, growing our base of retailers is critical to making sure our residents have local choices for shopping. Our recent economic development efforts have been focused on that very thing. Shop local is not just a municipal goal, but it's a necessity for our community. Every dollar spent here multiplies many times. Those dollars pay for roads, police and fire, water, sewer, schools. all the things that we want our community to have, and to make Miami such a great place to live.
All right. Well, we're moving on now to question number 6. What will you do as mayor to promote greater harmony within the city council, the city government, and citizens of Miami? And we'll have Mr. Trussler answer first.
The mayor and the council are essentially the ambassadors of the city. The image we convey in meetings is a reflection of who we are as a people. The importance of conveying a positive image is often underestimated. Image is crucial to a community's ability to market itself. Mayor Brassfield has mentioned this in council meetings, and I believe his explanation illustrates the point quite well. The keynote speaker at a recent event was a gentleman named Roy Williams, who had served as a site locator for many Fortune 500 companies. He stated that in the last 15 years, he has seen a change in what companies look for when seeking a community in which to locate plants and businesses. He said that currently 66% of the potential for a community to be selected could be attributed to a community's attitude. A community's attitude. As American citizens, we have every right to criticize local government. Not only is it our right, it's our obligation. Even if the comments directed at the mayor, council, or administration are critical, as long as it remains civil, reasonable, and respectful, it's not a bad thing. Nor does it necessarily convey a bad image of our community. A recent quote I was reading states that the strongest democracies flourish from frequent and lively debate, but they endure when people of every background and belief find a way to set aside smaller differences in service of a greater purpose. When the dialogue becomes personal, unreasonable, and uncivil, it hurts the community on many levels. And Kent, what I'm about to say, I don't mean to be disrespectful by any stretch of the imagination. I do respect your service in our community. But I think it's important to address that with citizens, there's a major difference between you and I. By and large, your nature is confrontational and combative. I know this because I've served with you on the council, and I've observed your interactions with other council members and the citizens that came before us. You describe yourself as being frank and to the point, but I think that's just a nice way of saying that you have a problem controlling your temper and your comments. How could anyone forget the times you personally attacked citizens from your council chair on public television and in campaigns, citizens whose greatest crime was to volunteer a lifetime of their effort, money, and talents to help improve the lives of everyone in our town while not expecting anything in return. The only thing they did was disagree with you. I think it's important that the attitude and personality expressed by the mayor is one that is pleasant and positive. I do not have a confrontational or vindictive personality. However, I will fight when necessary to protect our community's best interests. The manner in which I govern will be open, professional, and as positive as possible. There are going to be instances when the council will disagree and times when citizens are upset with our decisions. We will need to listen, not attack. We will need to learn, not abuse. We will need to work together. To promote harmony, we need to communicate as openly and as effectively as possible. In today's electronic world, information is quickly spread from one person to the next, but is never a substitute for the best option, which is sitting down with someone and having a conversation. I was reminded of this recently when one of the residents, while I was out knocking the doors, asked if we could have a quarterly public meeting where an individual council member would be available to listen to residents about issues or suggestions. I think this is an excellent idea, and I'm going to work to make that happen in some form. I believe that many times as citizens, we think that expressing ourselves won't make anything happening, but I found just the opposite to be true. As I've related many times, if I don't know there's a problem, I can't help you solve it. Maintaining an environment of trust and openness will lead to the realization that we truly are all on the same side. I'll make it a priority to supplement our regular electronic communications with a weekly conversation, or through at least a phone call to my fellow council members. As council members, we enter into a contract not only with our citizens, but with each other to achieve a common goal and a vision of our community. There's always going to be disagreement and differences of opinion, but we must learn to respect others and their right to think differently. Just look around you. In the midst of the greatest recession in 80 years, people in our community and county have jobs, our Main Street has been revitalized, the college is booming, and we can actually have civil conversations. I pledge to continue that for the prosperity and progress and respect for others.
Mr. Kitcher.
Well, Scott, I will respond to you. My Baptist preacher has a word for much of what you said. It's hogwash. Positive leadership is required if we are to have progress in Miami. Leadership that is practiced with integrity and compassion is a must. The elected mayor will have the serious responsibility to participate fully in the governing processes both as a right and a privilege. The mayor must be eager to serve and always feel honored to attend to the needs of Miami. Being civil, eager to assist, responsive to the needs of citizens, and being helpful rather than a hindrance are qualities that are a must. Improved communications will go a long way, and all city departments shall be informed to assist in this endeavor. I like the wording of our Constitution that begins, "We the people."
Thank you. Move on now to question number 7. What is the role for the city of Miami in the management of historic properties, such as the Coleman Theater? And Mr. Ketcher will go first.
Well, I believe to maintain the property, records, and information as required by state and federal agencies. When I was on the council, I was familiar with those, and it's quite lengthy, isn't it, Barbara? Okay, to fit the historical property into the city budget. However, the associated maintenance costs, such as the Coleman Theater, may run high, and you may have to ask the voters for financial assistance for improvements. You utilize city and civic organizations that are involved in the historic properties for advice and input.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ketcher. Mr. Tressler.
Most people don't realize that the city of Miami owns the Coleman Theater. The Coleman Theater is a public building. It's all of our residents cooperatively. The theater was deeded over to the city in the early 1980s, or the mid-1980s, The Coleman is widely recognized as the largest, most elegant theater property in Oklahoma as a focal point for our tourism efforts. Since the 1980s, hundreds of Friends of the Coleman volunteers have spent thousands of hours bringing our theater back to life. And now, thanks to the city's partnership with the MDRA, we are now at the end of that remarkable restoration effort. The process hasn't always been smooth, and there are still some hurdles to overcome, but the potential for this facility is enormous. And now we begin that transition from a restoration project to a full-service entertainment and conference venue. There's going to be a different set of skills needed. The city's responsibility for management of the Coleman property will need to evolve in such a way that we are able to maximize revenue opportunities and, of course, minimize costs. At the end of the day, however, taxpayers want to know one thing, and that is, what are we getting in return for our investment? So here's just a few of those facts. Thanks to volunteers, in-kind labor, grants, and donations, the building has been restored over the last 21 years to be valued at well over $10 million. 2/3 of the funding to restore the conference center and ballroom has come from grants and private donations. Regular donations and volunteer work continue. Each year, the Coleman is toured by over thousands and thousands of visitors that come from every state in the U.S. and 26 foreign countries. Shows and productions, meaning local, school, and traditional traveling shows, bring in more than 30,000 people each year. For national traveling shows, over 70% of the audience is from out of town. State and national studies show that each $1 spent on the ticket, the visitor spends an additional $2 on other items. For 2011, we already have 21 events booked for the new ballroom, 3 of which are statewide board meetings, which bring in tourism dollars to fill our hotel rooms. This will be a huge economic advantage for the city, bringing in large amounts of sales tax revenue with overnight hotel stays. The relationship between the Coleman Theater and the city of Miami is unique and plays an important part of the future of the growth of revenues in Miami. At a recent city council meeting, the CVB director reported that the hotel revenues were currently up 14%, despite the fact that originally they were down. Just one motor coach of 55 customers has a significant impact on Miami. If a bus spends one night, it has a $7,000 impact in the community. That's $7,000 of new dollars being spent in Miami. If the bus overnights for 2 nights, it's $10,000. 4 buses are already booked for April. 2 of those groups are here for 3 days. That's a $34,000 impact of new dollars being spent in Miami as a result of efforts that are related to the Coleman Theater. There are those who believe that the Coleman does not generate revenue and that the city is wasting money. The facts say otherwise. We have a plan and a vision for the Coleman, and the CVB is working on that as well. This is not the time to withdraw our support. As your mayor, I will continue to promote the Coleman and expand its use in the city in our marketing efforts and towards that goal of increasing tourism.
All right, thank you. Well, we're at our 8th question here. Here it goes. In what ways will you, as mayor, work with the Inter-Tribal Council? And Mr. Tressler will go first.
The city of Miami is not the only form of government within our city limits. We are the county seat of Ottawa County. Of course, there's the county government. The 5 tribal nation governments have jurisdiction as well in our city limits. Ottawa County is home to the largest number of tribal nations in the state of Oklahoma. All of these entities have access to federal funding, and working with these governments is vital to the growth of our city. The city has representation at nearly every monthly meeting of the Intertribal Council. I've attended a few of these meetings myself, and I understand the role of the Intertribal Council. These tribal leaders understand and respect the sovereignty of each other's tribal government. Working with each tribe on their individual needs is the key issue that needs to be addressed in this question. Each tribal government has the inherent right of self-governance, the right to govern their own people, just as the city council governs our citizens by the passage of legislation as city leaders. The unique aspect of having tribal governments in Miami is that what each does in respect to the form of government most of the time affects both communities. In simple words, many of our citizens are Native American, as am I. The leaders of tribal government are, just like the mayor of Miami, looking to provide the best services to our citizens, expand their quality of life, protect life and property, and expand economic opportunities for our citizens. Whomever is elected your next mayor will need to continue the willingness to listen and visit the tribal areas in our area. This council in the past several years has worked with the tribes to provide services, both tribal lands for job creation, economic development, as in the latest project, the new health clinic, which will vastly improve the health care for both of our citizens, both tribally and locally. I'm committed to continuing this type of cooperation. After 7 years of dedicated service to the citizens of Miami, Mayor Brassfield is going to retire and take a well-deserved break. During the time I've served with Brent, I've admired his patience, persistence, and dedication to our community. Most of all, I respect his willingness to seek other points of view as part of the deliberative process. Mayor Brassfield has continued the tradition of his predecessors and set a high bar for the rest of us. This election is about leadership and could be a decisive point in our community's future. During this campaign, some have focused on our community's weaknesses and the obstacles in our path. Yes, like a lot of communities across the nation, we still face some challenges. I believe it's your mayor's responsibility to provide effective leadership through the political and legislative process. If Miami's mayor cannot work with others to foster cooperation, we will never be able to address our problems effectively or use our limited tax dollars wisely. I believe at the end of the day, the difference between myself and my opponent is the ability to bring people together for our common good. I have a track record of working with people with differing points of view to find the common ground necessary for progress. Miami's future depends on growth. Growth in the number of residents, growth in the number of businesses, and growth in the number of visitors to our community. These are the basic components that will lead to a more vibrant economy, not just for Miami, but for all of Ottawa County. A more vibrant economy will help us with many of our other challenges. We can't afford to lose the momentum that we've gained. Our citizens have jobs, new businesses are going up on Main Street, and we're working together for a better future. The key to keeping us on a path to growth is cooperation, working with the same blueprint and towards the same vision. We can achieve that growth. The beginnings of that blueprint have been drawn these past few years, and the results are very positive. The work to improve our streets has begun, our downtown is busy, sales tax revenue is rebounding, and people are asking, what if? These what if questions show that people are thinking about the possibilities of the future because they can see that vision becoming a reality. As your mayor, I will work hard to make Miami the best community it can be. Thank you for your vote on April 5th.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kitcher.
Thank you. Well, I would attend the various meetings such as the monthly Intertribal Council and listen to their concerns to ascertain if the city can assist. I would share city information with them and check to see if any federal assistance might be forthcoming to any of the tribes. Ask if any city resources might be required. I believe concepts of goodwill, obligations, and duty will greatly strengthen the city's relationship with the Intertribal Council and members. We always need to respect the tribes, be accessible, listen to them, and respond.
Thank you, Mr. Ketcher. Well, those are the 8 questions. Let's show our appreciation for both candidates with a round of applause. I think we all appreciate the responsiveness and the attitude of the audience. It was very respectful. I appreciate that a great deal. I think we know that city government is very important. Just think about all the things that happen in our daily life and picking up the garbage, making sure we have clean water, safe streets. And so when you think about that for next week, let's be sure that we vote responsibly. So thank you and good night.